morning and welcome to the December 10th, 2019 Calaveras County Board of Supervisors meeting. We'll begin with the closed session.
Item 1, pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiator Judy Hawkins regarding unrepresented employees.
Any public comment? Seeing none.
Item 2, public employment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1, title County Council.
Public comment? Seeing none.
Item 3, public employee appointment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1, title Interim County Council.
Public comment? Seeing none.
Item 4, conference with real property negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, instruction to negotiator regarding potential purchase, price, and terms of payment for the following property affected by the Mountain Ranch Road Improvement Project. Agency negotiator, Dock and Engineering, negotiating party and respective property, APN, JRLLC, as to APN 042-034-013 and 042-034-007.
Public comment? Seeing none.
Item 5, conference with real property negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, instruction to negotiator regarding potential purchase, price, and terms of payment for the following property affected by the Mountain Ranch Road Improvement Project. Agency negotiator, Dock and Engineering, negotiating party and respective property APN, Richard and Roberta Held, trustees of the Held Family Trust, as to APN 042-034-012.
Public comment? Seeing none.
And item 6, conference with real property negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, instruction to negotiator regarding potential purchase, price, and terms of payment for the following property affected by the Mountain Ranch Road Improvement Project. Agency negotiator, Dock and Engineering, negotiating party and respective property, APN, Ronald Beaton and Robert Beaton, as to APN 042-034-002.
Public comment? Seeing none, we will move to closed session. We will return at 9 o'clock. Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors meeting for December 12th, 2019. If you are able, will you please rise for Pledge of Allegiance? Madam Clerk, will you please lead us?
Let us begin. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll report out on our closed session.
Item 1, conference with labor negotiator Judy Hawkins pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6 regarding unrepresented employees. There was no reportable action taken. Item 2, public employment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1, title County Council. There was no reportable action taken. Item 3, public employee appointment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1, title Interim County Council. On a motion by Supervisor Stopper, a second by Supervisor Callaway, the board voted unanimously to appoint Sarah Decay as Interim County Council effective 12/14/19 and directed staff to bring a resolution back at the next board meeting to memorialize the appointment. Item 4, conference with real property negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, instruction to negotiator regarding potential purchase, price, and terms of payment for the following property affected by the Mountain Ranch Road Improvement Project. Agency negotiator, Dock and Engineering, negotiating party and respective property APN, JRLLC, as to APN 042-034-013 and 042-034-007. There was no reportable action taken. Item 5, conference with real property negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. Instruction to negotiator regarding potential purchase, price, and terms of payment for the following property affected by the Mountain Ranch Road Improvement Project. Agency negotiator, Dock and Engineering, negotiating party and respective property APN, Richard and Roberta Held, trustees of the Held Family Trust, as to APN 042-034-012. There was no reportable action taken. And item 6, conference with real property negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, instruction to negotiator regarding potential purchase, price, and terms of payment for the following property affected by the Mountain Ranch Road Improvement Project. Agency negotiator, Dock and Engineering, negotiating party and respective property APN, Ronald Beaton and Robert Beaton, as to APN 042-034-002. There was no reportable action taken.
And we got that all done in an hour. So there we go. So thank you very much. We'll move on to announcements from the board and staff.
Announcements. This is a time for county staff to provide updates of upcoming county events that may be of interest to the public.
Supervisors, any announcements? Staff. Madam Treasurer, Tax Collector.
Good morning.
It is tax day, isn't it?
Barbara Sullivan, yes, December 10th. So I wanted to remind everybody today is the last day before you get a penalty assessed. You can pay online, you can pay at my office. There's many ways to do it now. You can go on our webpage and pay $1.50 for an e-check. So there's a lot of ways to pay. So hopefully everybody gets in there.
Thank you very much. Other staff announcements. Michael, Kelsey? Here we go.
Good morning. I'm Kelsey Holmes, and this is Michael Magana, and we are Health Education Program Managers from Public Health. We are here to announce that Calaveras Public Health recently won a competitive award for health equity from the California Endowment. The application for the award that we submitted spoke about the lack of data in rural areas, and without data, our ability to know the health and needs of our community is affected. So by collecting data and then writing the oral health needs assessment and then the oral health improvement plan based off the data, we brought voice to an issue. So data is important for many reasons, but particularly for getting more resources like grants, and then also helping us target our health in the community correctly. So the award was given to us for recognizing the disparity of data among rural and urban areas, and then working to address it by collecting data. So we were the only rural county to receive this award, and out of all of California, and we feel very honored. And we want to thank our community for helping us with this process by giving us this data.
Michael Magana, Health Education Program Manager, Calaveras Public Health, Health and Human Services. We're very grateful to be recognized by the California Endowment with this award, especially being the only rural health department to receive such recognition from in California. We've traditionally thought of health solely as physical health. What we've come to find in the public health field is that our health is largely determined by the conditions where we work, where we live, our level of education, and access to healthy food and water. These things, including housing, food access, transportation, health coverage, early childhood education, and so on, determine how long we live and the quality of life that we will have. Health equity, in its simplest terms, means that everyone has a fair and just opportunity to be healthier. I am, as we are, fortunate to have visionary leaders within the agency that enabled us to begin a dialogue around efforts to improve the health of our communities, looking at it through a public health lens, and we look forward to the work ahead of us. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Where are you going to put that?
It was just in our office. I don't know. Other questions?
I'd like to congratulate you. It's always great when our little county gets recognized on a statewide level for innovative processes and putting that together. So on behalf of the board, I would like to thank you guys and encourage you and thank all Public Health and Human Services. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stan?
Good morning, Stan Moore from IT. And we've got our GIS team here, Doug Falzoni and Dan Rios. Doug's our GIS coordinator and Dan Rios, the GIS technician 3. The GIS team was recently recognized for an award at the statewide level. This has to do with the emergency evacuation app that Doug and Dan presented here in front of the board a couple of months ago. Real quick history on this. This started with a request from Captain Ballard was here a minute ago, from Captain Ballard, from the Sheriff's Office and our OES department to see what we could do to improve communications to folks during an emergency evacuation situation. Turned into a great collaborative effort between GIS, our OES department, the Sheriff's Office, and CAL FIRE working together. And over an iterative time, these gentlemen put together a design, rolled out the app in fairly short order. It works with Calaveras Alert on an ongoing basis. This is something that we want to be communicating to the public, educating them on how all of this works to assist in emergency evacuation. There were 3 counties from the state, small counties by the statewide county IT organization, that's 700,000 and less, that were given innovation awards at the fall conference. Calaveras County was one of them for this GIS application for emergency evacuation. We presented that in November. It was received very well, and Calaveras County has received an award, and that award will be proudly displayed in the GIS office. So on behalf of the IT organization, I want to once again thank Doug and Dan and congratulate them for this award. Thank you, Board.
Thank you very much.
Just would like to thank Captain Ballard and Sergeant Whitney. Without their help, we wouldn't have been able to get any of this done. So, thanks.
Well, you guys have done amazing work. Thank you very much. And Stan, how you got Doug to wear a sport coat, I don't know, but looking good, Doug. Thank you very much, and congratulations, gentlemen.
Hello,
Staff?
my name's Richard Verasso. I'm the county's recruiter for the Census Bureau, and so I have dozens of jobs for the census right now available, and you could catch an application online at 2020census.com/jobs, and there's over 100 jobs available right now.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Everybody sign up for the census. Very important. Other announcements from staff? Had some good news this morning. Thank you, everybody. We'll move on to recognitions and acknowledgement.
Item number 7 is from the Administrative Office to adopt a proclamation honoring Megan Stedfeld for her outstanding service to the residents of Calaveras County.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. As chair, I've decided that I would like to read this resolution recognizing Megan Stedfeld for her outstanding service to Calaveras County. Whereas Megan Stedfeld was hired on September 10th, 2011 as a Deputy Counsel 1 assigned to assist with juvenile dependency and land use matters. And whereas Ms. Stedfeld was quickly recognized for her hard work and diligence as an attorney, her genuine warmth and kindness to the people around her, and her truly extraordinary gift for working effectively with a wide range of people. And whereas on June 28, 2014, Ms. Stedfeld was appointed as interim county counsel. And whereas on December 27, 2014, Ms. Stedfeld was appointed as county counsel and has served in that position for the last 5 years with remarkable skill and integrity. And whereas Ms. Stedfeld has not only been a strong and effective county counsel over the past 5 years, but she has also been an amazing supervisor to her staff, who all wish her well in this next phase of her life and career, but are also deeply saddened by her leaving. And whereas Ms. Stedfield's staff, in fact, contemplating contacting Yolo County and telling them they don't really want her, but for her own sake could not bring themselves to do this, to lie. And whereas Ms. Stedfield is that very rare person who is capable of managing complex and often grueling assignments on behalf of an elected government body, while at all times maintaining not just her honesty, integrity, and professionalism, but also her warmth and kindness towards everyone around her. That is our proclamation. Is there public comment on this item? I would like to make the statement that you are going to be deeply missed by this board. You have been a very steady hand on the tiller, and we're not always a walk in the park to work with. So I want to thank you. We will begin. Please,
Hello,
sir.
yes.
Everybody's will have.
Yes, I'm Larry Abernathy, and we're here, the current grand jury for Calaveras County, along with members of the newly formed Mother Lode chapter of the Grand Jury Association. And we're here to just say our farewell to Megan and to thank her for her support and counsel. And we would like to give her some flowers that were not from public funds, because we don't want her to get fired before. And we would like to just show our appreciation. And I'd like to also let each of the people here just identify who they are.
Of course.
Carolyn Steinmetz, I'm currently the chapter president.
Furman Brown, board member.
Brenda McHenry, Pro Tem.
Susan White. Diane White, I'm also with the Mother Lode chapter.
And I wanted to also let you know that Susan here found the flowers and took them to Bret Hart High School, and the students there are the ones that put this together.
Beautiful.
Can we, I don't know who can accept.
Megan can accept.
There we go. Okay, okay.
Let's just not drop the flowers. We have the biggest butts in the room with the flowers.
I don't think I've ever seen the grand jury. I'm going to hide out of the photo. You don't want to have that one.
Oh, there you go.
Good to see you.
Hello. Okay, ready? Awesome, thank you.
Bring them up there with you, Megan. You can put right now. I'm sure there's. Megan, we'll find a spot for him.
Thank you guys so much. That means so much to me.
Thank you, and thank you, members of the grand jury, for all your work. Other public comment? Board recognizes former supervisor. Cliff Edson.
Morning. Cliff Edson, San Andreas, and I was on the board that hired Megan, and very proud to do that. We went through some really trying times in the county during that period, including the Butte fire, the passing of Sheriff Kuntz, the cannabis stuff, Prop 64. There's a lot more, and Megan, being very new at the job, handled it extremely well. And so we had many meetings, and she read me my rights a few times. There's no doubt about that. But I was learning too. So, but she had the absolute best interests of the county in mind, protecting the county, keeping it out of lawsuits, and just doing the right thing. And so I will forever appreciate that. It's exactly what you were supposed to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comment?
Joseph Adams. I live on Lucky Jim Mine Road, and I just wondered about the taxation.
Sir? Excuse me, sir. We're going to have a general public comment next. Right now, we're commenting on Ms. Stedfield's
Well, the comment is, I don't know why the taxes have gone up $33,000 in 3 years.
I understand, sir, but we're going to take, if you could save that comment for just a couple more minutes, we'll make sure you have the opportunity. Speaker regarding Ms. Stedfield?
Camille Bacher, paralegal, county counsel. Megan was the first person that I met the day I came in to interview. And from then forward, it's always been a pleasure to be with her, to work with her, to become friends with her, to be a confidant. As everybody has kind of already indicated, we've had some rough times in this county. We've had difficult board members. We've had difficult members of the public. And while not always can you handle such things with a smile on your face, but Megan has always squared her shoulders, and she's always kept her chin high, and has always been fair. Yolo County's gain is definitely our loss. I will miss you. I wish you well. I wish Kevin well and the children in your new endeavor. I'll just miss you. Thank you.
Thank you, Camille. The public comment regarding this item. Seeing none, I will bring it back to the board. Any comments or a motion?
I'm not moving this item. I want that on the record.
Supervisor Mills?
Yes, Megan, you know that the controversies that this county has surrounded itself with over the years, they have been difficult at best for those that are in elected positions, but you've always had the ability to moderate that, and it's important to understand the value that brings to the whole in the discussion. So knowing that you've been there and willing to just stay the course is very important to the stability of this county, and I'm sure that it will continue in your future endeavor.
Supervisor Stopper?
I'd like to restate Yolo County's gain is our loss. I have valued the time working with you both as a supervisor and, lightly in the past through Miss Moss as Miss Moss Lewis as a planning commissioner. You've always given sound advice, and when I've needed it, you've definitely been able to reel me back when I've needed it also. So it's in the best interest of the county and everyone here, and you will be missed, Megan. Thank you.
Supervisor Tuffanelli?
Thank you, Megan. I've known you since you were hired here. We worked together a long time. Most of it good. We got along well, even when we had some disagreements. But you always gave your opinion, which is what you're supposed to do. And I will not be seconding this motion or after Marita doesn't make the motion. But just one last comment. When you picked the date, did you realize it was Friday the 13th? Did you? Is there some? Thank you again, Megan.
I would like to just add one that in my 30 years of service and professional service, I don't think I've ever worked with a council that's been as professional and even-keeled. And as I said, we're not always a walk in the park as a board. Some of us have very strong opinions, but you've been able to manage us and you've been able to deal with everybody fairly, and I greatly respect that. I'll miss you as a constituent. Kevin and your kids are wonderful parts of the community, and I know that Yolo County will have a great game. So I want to thank Kevin. I want to thank you, and I know many people in our community will miss you as a resident. So we have a non-motion.
You know, the next step into your life, we wish you success. We wish you prosper. We wish health to your family. With that, I'll move this item.
Motion by Supervisor Stopper. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Supervisor Bills. Very well. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed, the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors hereby recognizes and thanks Megan Stedfield for 8 years of dedication, hard work, and service in the County Council's office, and wishes her the very best as she embarks on this next phase of her career. Passed and adopted by the Board of Supervisors of Calaveras County, State of California, 10th day of December 2019. Thank you, Megan.
Okay, wait a minute, Here, this will make you feel better. Megan, and there's a frog. Here's a bag. There's a couple of whereases on there because that's important. Pair of high heels. What do you have on today? High heels, okay. A cannabis plant. Team building, that's an inside joke. The Brown Act. Oh, God, thank heaven she's leaving. And this is a lunch menu for the Board of Supervisors. Oh, and here's all the litigation in the state of California. I don't know whether to give it to you or to Dennis, but. Thank you.
Come on now for a moment. We've watched this before. Come on in, my friend.
Oh, I love that. Scoot in. A little bit more, Dennis. Okay, ready? Cheeseburger. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you to all of my staff, all of the department heads, all of staff, everyone, the public. Made some entertaining times here, and I just wanted to say thank you for your support for the years. So thank you. I'm not going to talk anymore today.
Thank you, Megan.
It's been an honor working for this county, and it is bittersweet. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Megan. All right, we'll move on to public comment. I think there's a few new faces in the room, so I will review the rules real quick. Everybody get 3 minutes. I'll ask you not to make to comment only on items that are not on the agenda. If you comment on an item that is on the agenda, I will ask you to return and make your comment at that time. I would ask everybody to be respectful and polite, address your comments to the board, and recognize this is not an exchange. So, with no further ado, Madam Clerk, public comment?
General public comment. Any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agendas may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before the 30-minute allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the next order of business. If public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued as the last item of business in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of comments to be heard.
Sir, this is your time now. Sir in the NRA hat. Cynthia? Thank you for your patience.
My name is Joseph Adams, and I've lived in Mount Ranch for 36 years. And we got burned to the ground in the Butte fire. And I can't understand why this county has got something against everyone that got burned out, I guess. I guess they think we should be punished or whatever. Because the land value in the last 3 years, and to the county's estimation, is worth $33,000 more than it was 3 years ago. 3 years ago it was 45 grand, now it's 78 grand. And I have no trees, no nothing. That's what I bought the property for, is because of the landscape, natural landscape it had. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that have the same problem as I do. I know of a lot of people that haven't been, their land value hasn't raised at all. So why are they picking on the people who got burned out? It seems like all of them, their land value is sometimes gone up twice as much. Mine's where it is, I told you the figures. And I just wondered why we're being punished. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So where is it going to go from here? Is that because the pot growers made the land value higher or what? The only thing I have to say is I know people at the state level, and it makes no sense to them whatsoever. And I've asked at the county assessor's office and tax collector's office, why is this happening? They said, oh, it's the state. It's according to what the land is selling for. Well, I know of people all over Calaveras County, and the people that's been burned out has been singled out. And our taxes have gone sky high where other people's haven't. That's all I have to say. I wish somebody would look into it to find out what the hell's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Good morning. My name is Cindy Herr, and this is my mom. I'm speaking on behalf of my mom. My mom's property tax has gone up in the past 5 years tremendously, $12,000 property tax-wise. My mom's been paying it on time, and out of the 2 years, my mom didn't own the property, and she has to pay taxes on that. And our question is, why are we paying for a property tax under years that we didn't own it? And if anyone was going to ever look into that. So my mom's talked to the tax assessor, and they said that it's because they're behind, and it's what they have on their backlog. So I mean, how does that work with anybody? So, do you have anything to say more? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Herr. Sanchez?
Good morning, Cynthia Sanchez, D2. Many property owners would love to be here at this meeting because it's during the day, they work, they're unable to attend. I will read some of their property tax issues. This property owner owns 4 properties in D2, 3 of them outside of the burn area, 1 inside the burn area. The 3 outside the burn area, the property increased by $17, the second one increased by $38, 1 decreased by $35. That's pretty much normal. But the one that was in the burn area increased by almost $200. This pattern of increased property and structure values, doubling and tripling, all started in the burn area. Another individual here lost everything on the property. Land value went from $10,000 to $107,000. Next individual lost everything in the fire. Land value went from $40,000 to $80,000. Another individual lost just trees and property. Land value, same thing, $40,000 to $80,000. This individual only lost their property and outbuildings, not their home. Their land value went from $40,000 to $87,000, and their structure, their house that did not burn, went from $130,000 to $289,000. Another individual only lost 5 acres of trees, no structures. Land value went from $50,000 to $100,000. Their house went from $212,000 to $410,000, and their taxes went up $3,000 in a 3-year period. Anyone who has purchased property in the last 5 years, a new pattern is surfacing due to the assessor's backlog. This individual purchased property on Frico City Road, and he closed through a title company. Closing documents showed the taxes to be a specific amount. He received a supplemental tax bill 2 years later. He paid it. The next year, he received another supplemental tax bill, and he paid it. And then a third supplemental tax bill. And he went to the assessor's office, and they say, we have a backlog, this is how we're handling it, and you just have to keep paying the increased tax bills. Another individual purchased property in 2017. Land value went from $15,000 to $30,000, received 3 supplemental tax bills this year. Another individual purchased property in 2017. Land value went from $30,000 to $51,000. 2 supplemental tax bills. Taxes went up $2,000. Another property owner purchased the property in 2016. Land value went from $30,000 to $53,000. 5 supplemental tax bills. This whole mess is due to the backlog of 7,900 transfers. It is now becoming our nightmare.
Thank you very much. If I could have everybody hold their comments in the audience while the speakers are, otherwise people would think they're talking to them. Next speaker.
The next speaker is going to be Pete Torres. For medical reasons, I will be speaking for him. His wife could not be here today.
Thank you.
We'll
My name is
that.
Pete Torres. I live here in San Andreas.
Okay. Pete Torres was not in the burn area. He acquired the property, in what?
Alfreda.
Alfreda, in 4.5 years ago. This year he received 4 tax bills. 4, all at once, even though they've been paying taxes continually for 4 years. And that's the question. They've been paying almost $1,000 annually, and now it has increased by thousands of dollars. How do you receive 4 years of tax bills in 1 year and are required to pay them? People who are receiving supplemental tax bills, these tax bills are due in a 30-day period. The women that were just up here, May, her, and Cindy, her daughter Cindy, that's what they have incurred. May received 5 tax bills this year. She owes to the county just under $12,000. This is a pattern due to the backlog, and it has now become our nightmare. Thank you very much. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for helping out.
Good morning, D2, Pamela Richmond. We have scrupulously conducted interviews with taxpayers, examined dozens of property APNs, and tax bills received for a minimum of 6 years, from pre-Butte Fire 2014 going into 2019, mostly in the D2 burn area. We are a voice for over 200 people in this district and counting. With few notable exceptions, taxes have gone up exponentially for those in the burn zone. Each case examined has had distinctions: ownership history, losses sustained, size and number of rebuilds, interfamily transfers, and more. This is an actual APN with numbers I was provided and then documented, and is typical of the soaring taxes we have seen, one of the many anomalies that simply cannot be explained, even by members over at the Board of Equalization. This person's assessed value in land went up from $40,000 to $109,490, a 198% increase. The assessed value of structures went up 134%. The total tax went from pre-Butte Fire, a lush land that suffered significant tree loss, as well as lost garage and outbuildings that were replaced, went from $3,358.2 to $5,150.46, a whopping 153% increase in taxes. This, another APN, has an assessed value of land that went from $50,000 to $100,000, back down to $85,000. It went up 200%, back down to 170% increase in assessed land value. Assessed structures went up 209%. The overall tax increase was a 196% total increase in taxes. For this last APN, after new construction was completed, total taxes owed were $1,364.58 for tax year 2019 to 20, with a prior bill for 2017. What makes this one interesting is that the taxes are normal, but what's really abnormal compared to some people getting tax bill followed by supplemental tax bill into the thousands that must be paid within 30 days is this property owner is allowed to pay the bill by April 10th of the year 2023. Wouldn't we all like to have that kind of deferment in our taxes? So we ask once more what's going on in the tax assessor's office. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Mr. McManus?
Good morning. You know, when we say the Pledge of Allegiance, there's one word that always kind of leaps out at me and resonates with me, and that's republic. You know, we're all lucky to live in a republic. But a republic rests on the foundation of representative government. Now, in the history of Calaveras County, we've only had one president ever visit here, and I think that was Ulysses S. Grant. But he didn't have a town hall meeting or talk to any of the people. Since then, I've never seen a U.S. senator come up for a town hall meeting. One governor, Pete Wilson, I remember, went out to Ironstone. He didn't have a meeting. Our assembly members and Senate members at the state level, they come by every once in a while with a town hall meeting, usually around election time. But where the rubber meets the road is in this room. This is where people can come up and touch their government. We live in the same community. We share the same districts and neighborhoods. People can come to you, whether it's at the grocery store or a parade or a ribbon cutting or a town hall meeting or whatever, and they can talk to you. They can call you on the phone. I've called many of you on the phone. They can send you an email. This is that intimate interface between the people and their government. Now, what bothers me is we don't recognize how important this room is, how important this podium is, how precious this microphone is. It's rare at any level of government for people to be able to come up and address their elected representatives with their problems, with their comments, with their requests, or just to complain or express themselves. What we've lost in this county is representative government. What we see now is, rather than serve the public, I can't believe with all this contact you don't understand, you don't have a sense of what the mood and feeling of the people in this county are in each of your districts and the county as a whole. I can't believe you don't know what they want. And yet we don't see that being handled with our representative government. Instead, we see at least 3 separate agendas where you're thinking of what you want, not about what we want. And we've been very explicit over the years. Lots of people come up here about what we want to see from our government. So the people are starting to become disconnected. They don't feel like the government listens to them. They're going to take it to a higher authority to find justice. That higher authority is either the election box or the courthouse. And I respect people whether I agree with their suits or not. I respect them for not letting representative government slide into the abyss, because without it, we don't have a republic. And I hope the board will take that into consideration, that you're here. Thank you.
Very much. Terry? Morning.
Good morning, Terry McBride, District 2. Proud of our district. Did you guys see the newspaper? It was a good one. Did a great job. Talks about being able to file an appeal if your property taxes are way too high, which we're finding too much. He did, in reading it, Ms. Davis spoke of us living in moonscapes, but the market value doesn't reflect that, which isn't true because properties aren't selling. Houses aren't selling. Now they're being rented, which we do need rentals. That's good. She's 7,900 behind. Do you know the city of Los Angeles, which has 4 million people in it, is 1,800 behind. So they are taxing people. Oh, hey, we got this one caught up. Throwing all of it onto a family or senior citizens to have a limited income. It's a set. It's not like they're going to go out and take a night job. Or a family with youngsters and putting food on the table. And they're throwing all these bills, and they've got the state behind them because it's a property tax. You got to pay it. You can lose your home. So a lot of folks are finding they're going to have to leave. Is that what this is all about? Because they can't afford the property tax? My taxes didn't go up in Amador. Other people in Amador, their property tax hasn't gone up. Folks I talked to in Tuolumne, their property tax hasn't gone up. Now, when I say that, you never know. You always add about 1% or 2% in case it goes up a bit. That's all within what's normal. This is not normal. I put a page on Facebook. It's called Citizens Against Abusive Taxation, because that's where we're at. Lots of comments on my shares on my San Andres, Mountain Ranch, Moke Hill, and Calaveras, and other horror stories from other people. It's hurting the seniors, it's hurting the children. And please remember that they have shown that the average family maybe has $400 in the savings account. Where are they going to come up with these thousands? I mean, we've all of us talked to people in tears trying to figure out how are they going to find this money that they have to do. We've had meetings in Sacramento. We've already done that. I've explained it to you, and they've gone quite well, and they wonder what in the heck is going on in our little county that I love. I grew up here. My roots are damn deeper than many of yours, without a fact, and I'm seeing this happen to the people here. It breaks my heart. At what time do our supervisors speak up for their constituents? I'd like to see a vote of non-confidence of our assessor. Is she inept? Are they corrupt? Are they just unable? Are they power hungry? Just what is it? How about a vote of no confidence? Stand up for your constituents, whether they're banners or whether those like me that like the legal growers. And then request a resignation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Terry, appreciate it. Mr. Vecino?
Tom Vecino, Calaveras Planning Coalition. Before I say anything else, I just want to say to Megan, good move. Yolo County's got good schools for your kids, but I lived in Yolo County for 5 years. She'll be back.
Welcome.
Also want to thank Mr. McManus for his speech. I'm going to make his prophecy come true. On December 9, the Calaveras Planning Coalition filed a case in Calaveras County Superior Court claiming the general plan update is incomplete and in violation of planning law. The case also calls for the county to release the 2011 Mintier General Plan, which to date the county has withheld from the taxpayers who paid for it. Finally, the petition for writ of mandate claims that the county wrongfully refused to include in the plan feasible measures to protect the health, safety, and environment of the people of Calaveras County. According to the prayer for relief, at the end of the petition, the CPC filed the case because our dear friends, neighbors, and family members deserve to benefit from a future that includes lawfully planned economic development, lawfully prescribed resource conservation, and lawfully accessible public documents. What makes the GPU controversial is not so much what is in the plan, but what is missing from the plan after 13 years of work. The petition indicates that the GPU indefinitely defers critical planning for roads, water, sewer, and emergency services. This is shocking, since these key general plan issues were identified by the people in workshops across the county and were acknowledged by the Board of Supervisors all the way back in 2008. The Calaveras Planning Coalition challenges the Board of Supervisors to immediately take steps to complete the deferred parts of the general plan update. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, I'm Janice Bassett from Valley Springs. I too am very disappointed in the general plan update. I'm appalled at the way all the work that the citizens dating back from 2008 when I first moved to this county, I was so excited about the Valley Springs community plan that people were developing. And I attended many of the meetings at the multipurpose room that was attended by hundreds of people who were putting their hearts and their minds towards creating a vision for their community. They completed a plan, and then there was another plan, the Toffanelli plan, but neither one. And then there was a merge plan, but they were all just thrown in the trash. I am in agreement with Bill McManus that you guys are supposed to represent us. And I don't understand how you just disregarded all the work of all those people who tried to help you guys understand what it is that the people wanted and to steer you in the right direction, but you just threw it all away and trashed it. So I'm very disappointed. Very, very disappointed.
Thank you. Next speaker. Ms. Corda. Morning.
I brought a bag. I'm practicing being a bag lady. With all this stuff going on, we're all going to be on the streets and no bathroom. Wow. One of my favorite sayings is, the love of power is the love of self. The love of freedom is the love of others. And to me, that is the best thing that someone representing the public should be contemplating on. Also, there's a saying that, or quote or whatever, that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And unfortunately, the people that have been talking today are talking about things that have been orchestrated by state government and our supposed representatives. And it's not a good thing. And I wouldn't want to mention the brand of government, elephant or mule or whatever, but it just gives me pause.
Thank you. Speaker.
Belated happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I haven't been here in a while.
My name is Gina Gonzalez, and I live in Angels Camp, and I belong to a volunteer emergency preparedness group called CERT, Community Emergency Response Team. We were requested by Public Health on November 7th to help support the flu clinic. Mr. Alt, I have a complaint with you, and I want to say it face-to-face in public. We were at Jeff Tuttle Drive right here with a stop sign. In your Suburban, you drove past us twice and almost hit me. I just want you to know that when there's a neon yellow vest, you, and everybody knows that, I guess you think you're better than everybody else, and I'm telling you straight up, that's upsetting to me. We had 3 people there. If I hadn't moved to the left, I would have been hit by you in your Suburban. You went around the stop sign and did not adhere to any of our directions or even stop to ask questions. That is not acceptable to anybody. We are out there in the community doing traffic control at night. We are out there with flashlights. Please adhere to the best. Please adhere to your signs, and please, I know you are important, and you probably are. I don't know anything about your background, but I can tell you that that's not acceptable. It's dangerous, and there's many volunteers in this community that wear these neon yellow vests at night. We all need to stop and adhere to them. We were almost hit by somebody driving past an ambulance. People need to be aware of what's going on and drive carefully in these rains and fog. We need to be careful. We don't want to lose any of our community. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Thank you, and I'd like to wish everybody a up-and-coming Merry Christmas. I'm here to comment about the property taxes. I have talked to many folks that have seen the same thing. The property taxes are just going a little bit nuts. You know, you have a lot of seniors that are on fixed income, a lot of people around here on fixed income, and to raise their property taxes along with the crazy raising of all of the insurance, property insurance and homeowners insurance, it is becoming extremely difficult for people just to make ends meet. So I don't see how a burned out area can increase in value so quickly. I just don't see it. I had a piece of property off of, up in Mountain Ranch area. It was burned out area. It had almost every tree disintegrated. The pump was in the well. The septic was a problem. The area in which the house was dug out, and there was a big hole there. And I received a property tax bill this year for double what I paid originally, $700 more. And it still had all of the school taxes and everything attached to it. And there was, you know, the only improvement that happened was the improvement that I made on it, fixing things that were already there, or trying to fix things that are already there. So I don't get how you can take a piece of incinerated piece of property like that and double the taxes on it, or double the assessed value on it, actually. So there's something wrong, and I would appreciate the board looking into it. It's not fair to a lot of people. We have, like I said, a lot of people just surviving up here, barely surviving. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for one last speaker. Ms. Garza, you will wrap up public comment.
Good morning. A few days ago, I went to the new Grocers Outlet in Valley Springs. Nice store. But I'm on a budget, so I couldn't buy everything I wanted, but I bought things that I needed. So I go to the checkout stand, and there's this gentleman in the line in front of me, and he's got this cart overflowing with cookies and donuts and ho-hos and frozen stuff. So I'd fire up this conversation with him. I'm like, my God, you've got enough there to feed an army. He goes, yeah. He goes, it's great. And he pulls out his EBT card. And he goes, I pay for it with this. I said, oh, that's nice. So what do you do for a living? You don't work? And he says, no, I'm a trimmer. I work for a farm, and I get paid $100 a pound to trim weed. He says, and I can trim 2 pounds a day. It's $200 a day. It's $1,400 a week. It's $5,600 a month. So then he goes on talking about how Calaveras County is a bunch of idiots. Our supervisors are a bunch of idiots because his income is unreportable, untaxable. So he has free health insurance, he has an EBT card, and he gets cash aid. And he can buy all these groceries where people that work can't afford this. And I asked him, I said, aren't you afraid that you're going to get busted while you're doing this? And he says, nope, the farm that I work for, they used to be legal back in the UO. But when the ban came, they decided they were still going to grow. And I said, but, what if you get busted? He goes, this farm won't get busted. I said, what do you mean by that? He says, just trust me. This farm won't get busted. What does that mean? So, Jack, how is this good for our community? I don't see where this job is good for our community. And Benjamin. A few meetings ago, you talked about how precious your daughter is. You love your daughter. You're going to protect your daughter. You're going to even protect her against this marijuana. What kind of role model are you? What kind of dad are you? Shame on you, Ben. The same thing you're going to protect your daughter from, you're voting to bring back into our community. Hope your daughter doesn't look up to you.
We're going to take a 5-minute break to set up for Ms. O'Connell. We're going to change up the agenda, and Mia will do the government affairs before we move on to consent agenda. Welcome back to the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors meeting. We have moved up item 27 to in front of the consent agenda to accommodate some flights home. So, Mia, welcome.
So item 27 is from the Administrative Office to receive a presentation from Mia O'Connell of O'Connell and Dempsey regarding federal advocacy, provide guidance for Calaveras County priorities for the 2019-2020 legislative year.
Ms. O'Connell, welcome.
Thank you so much. Pushing the button. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for having me today. It's my pleasure to see you. Megan, congratulations. Boy, what a show of support for you. That's incredible. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present the county's draft legislative platform for review and discussion and your direction. I am Mia O'Connell. It is my honor and privilege to represent Calaveras County in Washington. Here we go. For our objective today, I'd like to discuss and hopefully come to agreement, if possible, on our key federal legislative priority areas to define objectives and outcomes to pursue for federal initiatives. Today's discussion will firm up the county's draft legislative platform and provide me the direction I need from the board to pursue your priorities. We, as many of you remember, in September and October of this year, we had discussions, I had discussions with each of you regarding your priorities and updating the legislative platform within the scope of our agreement, which presently is focused on water, forest management, and a broader category of rural development. Those discussions did result in areas of consensus for updating the platform. And those areas are here. I'm going to let that sit for a moment because we're going to go through those in a little bit more detail. Beyond the 8 that we've identified, there were also a number of placeholder issues that I was asked by a number of the supervisors to identify as potential priorities that we'll discuss as well at the end of the presentation. So today's approach will really be to review those 8 priorities to see if the board agrees with those or wants to remove some of them, add some others to focus on really a smaller amount of objectives, or also to kind of consolidate some of these similar areas and to review each area and focus on the federal opportunities. We may even want to consider establishing a top tier of priorities depending on your direction to me. Let us move on right now. So the first issue identified was removal of hazardous trees on BLM lands. I would say that we are well aware of the issue and the need for success on that. We were pleased to see a recent grant award of $88,000 to the county as a result of a well-written proposal, but also the tenacious efforts of our chair partnering with the head of the BLM state office and our efforts in Washington in working with the BLM headquarters to raise the profile of our requests. And in the discussions that I had with headquarters, really kind of talking to them about the need to continue the funding and the extent of our issues. The recommendations from headquarters at that time was really to look at a multi-year funding agreement. Here in the state, that's referred to as a good neighbor agreement. And headquarters promised us that they would reach out to the state and talk to them about our needs, which I believe they have, and to get those needs funded. I'm very pleased to hear in the last couple of weeks BLM's recent interest in moving forward with 2 of the county's shovel-ready projects under the county's tree mortality program. I would tell you that I think our message is coming through, that BLM, both at the state and at the headquarters, is really starting to understand the needs of this county, and that's the effort of our work together, and I'm pleased that we're starting to get some traction and some funding, and I think there's more to be had there. So the question here is this a federal legislative priority that the board would like to continue with? We can open it up for discussion right now on this item and then move to the next, if that's okay, Mr. Chair? Or how would you like to go?
Would be more efficient. Would it be better to look at the whole picture and then narrow down your questions?
We can do that.
Why don't we go through the whole thing and then maybe we'll circle back.
Absolutely, thank you. So for the second item, it really is focusing on healthy watersheds, forest management, locally managed, and also looking really for the first time on increasing funds to Stanislaus National Forest and looking at the Calaveras Ranger District, and it's kind of a Byzantine system they have, but it really is programmatic and kind of getting into the agency and seeing how they prioritize and going to affect that. So in terms of opportunities and outcomes, we've been spending time with the Collaborative Forest Landscape Program, which of course is where UMRA's 10-year program for Amador Calaveras cornerstone projects have been funded over the period of time. And in working with the board and UMRA over the last year, when there was an additional funding opportunity, UMRA's decision was, rather than go after another long-term program, they want to extend it for a year or two in this next year, and we'll be working with Forest Service on that. As I also mentioned, as kind of a newer item, the idea would be to really kind of dig into the National Forest System and Forest Service and how they allocate funds to certain areas, and we'll be focusing on Stanislaus and looking to see if we can include additional funds for our area. Moving on to the next priority that was identified, and I'm sorry for the messy slide, we tried to include a couple of different things in here. It's really kind of the infrastructure area and looking at transportation. A State Route 4 realignment has been a priority. It was brought up again as another priority. A number of you asked me to talk to our Public Works Director to get his thoughts on other priorities, and really his view was that safety as a whole needs to be a priority at the county level, of course, both for road projects and for fire protection. What are we talking about in terms of the issues? The issues remain the same for the Route 4 realignment. I believe that remains a high-profile need. And in terms of looking at these additional areas for safety, for road projects and fire protection, really kind of looking at funding for safety measures is the charge here. Warning signs, larger shoulders, off-ramps, these kinds of safety measures for the roads, looking to find federal funds for those activities. In terms of fire protection, fire breaks for high-risk area, no fire zones, public education, self-help for the community, preventative steps, this sort of thing. In terms of opportunities and outcomes for funding, last week in our discussions with Federal Department of Transportation, they advised us that their very large infra program, which is about a $900 million program, with a 25% set aside. In other words, 25% of those funds are for rural areas. We see that as something that would be obviously very useful to us. That notice of funding opportunity is going to be going out later this month, is what DOT told us, with applications due in the spring. So we're gearing up for that, and we're in discussions with the Public Works Director to kind of look at the Route 4 and maybe some other areas if we've got some bridge needs, this kind of thing, while there is a funding opportunity out there. Other opportunities we see are DOT's high-risk rural roads program. Also the Senate Transportation Bill. The authorization bill is being developed right now. There is a provision in there that's a safety incentive program to put funds for the kinds of things we were just talking about, protection for the population on the roads. And it's interesting, in the Senate bill, the focus is really on urban and state funding. We'd like to open that up to the rural areas as well, especially given with the safety kind of numbers we have. In terms of fire protection, of course, fire administration is out there. FEMA, we've been able to identify that FEMA's got an interesting program, fire prevention and safety funds for community risk reduction, more or less preventative type activities that we would avail ourselves. That's an opportunity we see there as well. Let's move on to the fourth priority item as it was identified in discussions with the board, and this is a familiar one, Cosgrove Creek. The issue there is vegetation and sediment need to be removed in order to provide the capacity in the stream to carry the flood waters. As some of you may know, in terms of opportunities, over the last couple of years, the Corps was asked by the county to look at a flood protection project for that area. They did a significant study. It was determined that there was no federal interest in constructing a project because it didn't meet the benefit-cost ratio. However, we turn and look at it and say, well, there is a significant maintenance issue that would go to provide more capacity to reduce the flood threat. So the idea here would be to really look at a regular regime of maintenance, looking to the federal government for permitting and this sort of thing, so that the county can go in on an annual or whatever is determined basis to really do a regular regime of getting that sediment out of there, getting the vegetation out of there, providing the capacity so the floodwaters can move through quickly and not back up and flood our neighbors. The fifth area was one in which, rather than the county going after funds, this would be more of a support for others kind of an approach, and we have a couple in that category too. This one would be supporting CCWD's efforts with the Corps of Engineers, the Bureau of Reclamation, in addressing the failing and outdated water and wastewater facilities across the county. At this point, CCWD has two requests that we have been generally supporting. One, a $1.1 million to go in and do some construction work with the Corps of Engineers under their Section 219 program. It's the first phase of the Copper Cove upgrade for their wastewater treatment facility, and that would be funds in the Corps of Engineers work plan. The second phase of that is more of a holistic one. There's an existing authorization for construction of $3 million. The effort within the Water Resources Development Act would be to increase that to about $13 million to cover the full range of the upgrade of the treatment plant. So two tracks there. Again, this would be a more or less support for others, supporting CCWD's efforts, not directly funding the county. We have another in that category here, the broadband access area. You know, of course, we know the challenges, the geographic challenges, and how tough it is to put in broadband across an area like ours, and to have it pencil out. Lots of challenges there. I would say that the outcome, the kind of effort that we look for there is really to support the private sector. Again, this is kind of a support for others regime. Support the private sector in their efforts to go after USDA Rural Utility Service funds for broadband access. The next area that was identified was to develop a job training center in the county for forest management and other marketable kind of skills, kind of developing a skilled workforce to create those jobs. I heard from a number of you that the Motherlode Job Training Center and a couple of our educational institutions here in the county do very good jobs in this arena. I must say that the general consensus when I was talking to the supervisors was to take this item off of the list because it was going to be handled by the private sector. Supervisor Stopper asked me to leave it on so he could have a discussion, and that's what we've done here today. And the final priority that was raised was dealing with the FEMA grant, closing out the FEMA grant and looking at the federal process there. Of course, the issue is the county is still awaiting some of the reimbursement funds from damages from the Butte fire. In terms of opportunities there, you know, it's the funding opportunity. In reviewing the IG report, talking to staff, this appears to be more of an issue of county staff getting the guidance and direction and assistance from OES to manage the grant award, file the appropriate paperwork, do these kinds of activities in order to comply with the federal rules. I think the request should be made, if it hasn't already, to OES from the county to really provide the technical assistance and guidance in how to comply with the federal disaster relief regulations. So, you know, we can ask the question whether this should remain as a federal priority or whether this should be in another category. Let me take a moment too, right now, to also talk about the placeholder issues. I can run through those quickly and then we can get into a discussion of all. The placeholder issues that I was asked to put on, the first one that came up was assistance for the homeless issue here in the county. I was asked to put that on the agenda for discussion. The second one was the cannabis issue. And in that case, some of the discussion was perhaps in this arena, it was more or less just advising the delegation of our perspective in our position on the cannabis issue rather than doing anything on the federal front, but we can save that for discussion. The third item was to look at reverting small BLM properties to local control. Supervisor Mills, that was your item that you brought up. You also brought up the need for a secondary route out of Saddle Creek and Copper Cove to Highway 120 rather than use O'Byrne's Ferry Road. So those four items were brought up by two different supervisors. We put them here on the placeholder for discussion today to see if we should consider those or not for inclusion in the priority list. Why don't we open it up for discussion right now,
Sure.
if that's acceptable?
Mia, what would be the best way for us to convey information that you need so you could do your job for us on our behalf? We have 8 items. We've got these discussion items. Would it be better to check off whether we even want to talk about these placeholders, or better to go through each of the 8 for you?
Either way, it doesn't make any difference. We can start with the placeholder issues. We're here right now. The screen's up. Why
Okay.
don't we do that?
Generally, what we'd do is we could talk about them, and then to add them on, we'll do a poll of the board, see if there's any interest.
Excellent. So I'm going to call on Supervisor Callahan to discuss the first 2 issues, which she raised as placeholder items.
Yes, there's a lot of funding and on the federal level for things happening with the homeless. The issue is across the United States, but I'm, of course, more concerned about Calaveras. I think our Health and Human Services Director has done an outstanding job to bring resources in to the county, but I think there's more that we can do. And I'm not an expert in it. I just know it's an issue. I know there's funding there on a federal level. There's things like the board in their initial agreement with Ms. O'Connell said it was water, forest, and rural development. There is funding out there for case management, social services, housing construction. Of course, maybe increasing the availability of Section 8 housing. All this can help under that umbrella of rural development. I think it would behoove us to spend some time in, especially in working with our Health and Human Services Agency on finding out, because they know better and they have a community team that helps them, what kinds of things can we utilize your services for to bring those resources, those grants or funding to Calaveras County, similar to what you're doing with our Public Works Director. Mm-hmm. So I would like to see homelessness as a topic. I just want to make a preface. Excuse me. I believe it's important that if we're going to use Ms. O'Connell's services, that we need to do something where we get a return on investment. The investment is the county is paying her company to bring resources and to represent our needs in Washington. I want to see a return on that investment. And because there is funding out there, there is a need in this county. This is just one of the issues I'd like to talk about. I'd like homelessness to be addressed as one of a placeholder issue for Calaveras, for the use of the services in Washington. Do you want me to go on?
No, we'll do a poll on that. Let's do a poll. Who would like to see this continued as one of the items of priority for Ms. O'Connell as she plans out of work? Do a poll of the boards. Who has Toffanelli?
I have a couple questions first.
Certainly.
Mia, if we add to this list of 8, at what point does your plate become full?
That's a good question. It's one I ask myself. I think through the discussion of the 8, we may have a situation where some of those 8 come off of the list, or certainly come off as a priority, maybe as a support, which is a lower level of involvement. So, I think there might be some iteration of this 8, which would help to address the question that you're bringing up. I do want to say I agree with Supervisor Callaway that we have seen some federal pots of federal funding that are out there. USDA, in fact, has a rural housing program that I think we should explore, and there's a couple of others. So there are some opportunities for federal funds, as the supervisor mentions, Hopefully, through this discussion, we'll narrow down the list of the 8 and get to something more manageable. And in that case, I think this would be workable.
You have a question?
Being down at the CSAC conference this past week, there's legislation passing down from the state to hold us accountable for affordable housing. At the same time, I discussed with some of the state reps there. This goes hand in hand with what we're discussing right here. The governor's signed orders that are making costs to building housing more expensive, and then they're going to hold us accountable. Now, I'm wary of Section 8 housing, but affordable housing, and along with workforce development with these rural development things, a lot of this is handled through CMCAA. And how we're able to facilitate bringing in these funds, which we're on with Mariposa County. We got a JPA with them. I think it shouldn't be just for homeless. I think at the same time, if we're going to work towards something like this, affordable housing needs to be in there, along with workforce development and developing jobs for people so that they can work to the point where they can support themselves, not just the homeless initiative.
So you would support this with the expansion to include affordable housing?
Right.
Supervisor Mills?
Yeah, it would have to be expanded to include workforce housing, not just affordable housing. That's the key component.
Sorry.
And within the realm of penciling out that it makes financial sense, the idea of spending $400 a square foot on a house just makes no sense to me, whether the federal government pays for it, the state does, or we do. So I would like to be sure that we understand the value of what we would be putting into it.
The question of whether a house costs $400,000 to build in California and $200,000 to build in Kansas is a state issue, not a federal issue. So those are things that we can be lobbying for on the state level. I'm looking at this as, what are we going to do on a federal level to bring funding into Calaveras County? Changing they're not going to do anything about the 400,000, but they are going to help. There is funding for housing construction for the homeless, and that's funding for that. But the 400 is a state issue. It is not a federal issue.
Yeah, but that depends on what the funding that's available is for. It may not be specifically for building houses for the homeless. There's so many different funding sources that they're supposed to be used for, so.
Well, under HR, I think it's 1978, I can't remember, I read it, because I wanted to tie it into the goals that you had, in the prior board had set, that it would be providing housing construction. So that's a project that we could have in Calaveras. But anyway.
Let me ask a quick question. Supervisor, excuse me.
She is.
Mia. You're back there. We're talking about a lot of different things up here.
Yeah.
Do you see a path in amongst what you're seeing up here that you might be able to drive us through, or is this just a big oblique monolith?
From what I've looked at, housing, for example, under the USDA programs really focus on, it's interesting, grants for low-income rural areas. And I think, we need to get into talking with the USDA folks and others about, okay, what is the threshold? What are your criteria But in many cases, you see, rather than specifically homeless housing, it's low-income housing for areas, and we'd have to look at that to see low and, you know, what's the criteria. But to me, you could probably tie in the homeless housing funding issue along with the affordable low-income housing. You could tie those two together and search for funds under that program, especially through a rural lens, which USDA allows us to do. I think that would be a useful endeavor. And some of it is for, you know, grants straight to the housing department here at the county level. I think that would make sense. We could put something together like that. And honestly, I haven't, because the issue is just coming up, I haven't spent a whole bunch of time on, you know, is this construction? Is this, you know, rental units that are being transferred? You know, there's a lot to be looked at. And I would spend some time looking at that to try to get a good fit. But I think you could tie together both the homeless and, you know, the low-income assistance together, and we could spend some time looking at funding for rural areas like ours. I think it would probably be worth our while.
Maria, would that work for you?
Yes.
Gentlemen?
Yeah, let's bring it forward, at least have a discussion when we get to the 8 that we have already.
Any objection? Okay, next item.
Okay.
Here I go again.
Cannabis.
Cannabis, I'm looking at it again from the federal level, on whether you support cannabis or you don't support cannabis. It is an issue in the United States. And we have at least 33 states where cannabis is legal for medical purposes. And reading what's happening in Congress on the federal level, the whole banking industry, I think that we should support somehow the banking system as it, I mean, do I want them to take marijuana off Schedule 1? Yeah, I do. So, I mean, let's get that off the table. But that's maybe a little bit down the road. I just think that we need to support Congress, I'd like us to say, because it's such a huge market within the state of California and Calaveras that I would like us to be supporting some kind of banking mechanism. I would prefer that nationally. Then I would prefer California setting up their own rules and the other states setting up theirs. I'd rather see it from a federal level. And I'd like to see us take an approach of support on banking. Thank you.
Mr. Stopper.
Congressman McClintock is working on something like that right now with, I believe, a senator from, or a congressman from Oregon. I believe Colorado's involved, along with a Southern California congressman. And they're writing something up with legislation that's moving here forward, I do believe soon, probably coming up in the new year. But that's all I have to say about that. I don't think that's a high priority for us to be pushing, because I think that they're very well aware of this issue at the federal level, and they have been working towards a resolution on this for quite some time. Hopefully they can finish something.
Supervisor Mills?
I agree. It's not really a high priority for us on a local level. This is a larger national discussion. As long as it stays within the realm of a Schedule 1 drug, all of those things which the Controlled Substances Act still apply. And so the Congress is going to, not the Congress, but the Senate is the one that's going to have to make this discussion happen through the change of a treaty. And I would just say, that would be something that we're not going to be able to spend a whole lot of time and affect the change locally. It's not going to affect us here locally, and that's the key. So I wouldn't be in support of it.
Supervisor Toffenelli?
I wouldn't be in support of it either. Again, going back to the last item, Supervisor Callaway said expending funds for a benefit. I don't see that here.
And, fortunately, our U.S. Congressman is in line with the majority of this board for legalization of cannabis and is carrying legislation. So I feel like if he needs their help, I'm sure he'd ask for it. But I think he's probably got it lined up. So I will also, sounds like there's, Gary, no? Ben? Goodness. Yes, no. 4-1. BLM properties.
That's mine. This is something that I wanted to be put into the mix of the discussion because of the number of BLM properties and the experience that we've had with item number 1 in removing trees from BLM lands. Maybe we need to broaden this spectrum out a little bit. The Resource Conservation District here in Calaveras County has expressed interest in being involved in reversion of federal lands to local control. And since they are USDA Title IX, it wouldn't be real difficult. This is something that the state of Alaska has been doing for years. It's just a matter of bringing it into the forefront of saying, do we just want to talk about BLM in relation to trees, or do we want to talk about BLM and how they're being operated within the realm of Calaveras County, and what can we do as a county to help to regulate or control our future on these small parcels that are scattered all over the place here, many of which were at one time mining claims that probably never were perfected or are in some state of not really having good paperwork on them anymore. So I would like to just include this with item number 1 of what we do regarding BLM and their discussion.
Okay. I'm going to skip over protocol and I'll comment because I've been working closest with BLM. I'm not going to support this. Not that I don't think these lands ought to come back eventually, and there are many scattered orphan pieces of property around, but in many ways it picks a fight with BLM because we're now going to say you have to give up something to us, and we are making great progress with our state and federal office in a very friendly way, and I don't tend to poke people in the eye when I've got my hand out for money, and so I'm not going to be supporting this. Stopper?
I would agree with Mr. Garamendi in the fact that also at the point where if the county were to take possession of these properties from there, that we're incurring a cost to the county that we may not be able to sustain in the future. And we need to put some serious thought into what we are willing to acquire and not acquire. And a lot of these BLM lands, growing up here and having hiked the countryside, are on, no one took those originally because they're on such steep side hills that they're not useful to anyone. So at the point where you can continue your good work and incur the costs of the tree removal to BLM, hopefully in the future, I would prefer to circumvent us paying for the removal of those trees if we can make that happen.
That's a very good point. Supervisor Toffenelli?
Yeah, I won't support it either. I don't think, not knowing what it is we're getting into here, what properties, additional properties we're going to take in as county property, the condition of them, again, there's a lot of trees that were burned on a lot of these different properties that are still standing. What's going to happen? We take on the responsibility of it, not knowing how many, what acreage, adding to what we have already now. We were having a discussion, Jack and Mr. Alt, just on our ad hoc facility about properties that the county owns throughout and some of the problems we're having. So I'm not in favor of it.
Supervisor Callaway?
I don't support that.
Okay. 4-1. Next item. This one I probably assume is yours too.
Thank you. This is a longer term and maybe just to begin a discussion. Copperopolis, due to its expansion that's going on right there right now, is creating a problem of emergency access out of that area, that basin. We can't be continually thinking about pushing everybody northbound to Highway 4 and expect that that's the answer. The problem with the Oberns Ferry Bridge and the narrowness of the bridge, the problems with the amount of traffic flow that is on that bridge in relation to how much is on Highway 4. Those two actually are pretty much balanced, around 4,000 plus cars a day in both directions. So being that Tulloch is a federally controlled reservoir, I just see that at some point in the future, with the number of homes that are scheduled on the books to be developed in that area, that we're really going to have to take a serious look in the next 2 to 5 years of finding an alternate exit out of that zone for emergency purposes as well as traffic safety.
So, Supervisor, do you want to include this, or?
I would not want to include it at this time. It's just to begin a discussion for a longer term.
Very well. So, Mia, recognizing that the plane's not going to wait for you if we don't keep moving, maybe we should go back to the 8 and
Yes.
discuss those.
Thank you.
What time is your flight?
2.
Sacramento?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get you going.
Sir,
Yes.
if I make a quick suggestion on this as we move forward, because the employment issue will come up here very soon that some of the supervisors were asking to leave off. I think that goes hand in hand with workforce development, and we could build that together with affordable housing and everything. That would be my suggestion. Instead of removing it, we put it all together as one.
So, Ben, help me understand. So you're suggesting we take the
Marita's item.
Marita's item, the assistance homeless, and see if we can't blend that with item 7? Is that correct?
Right?
Yes.
I mean, if we can give people jobs and bring them to the point where they're self-sustaining.
Mia, you're the professional. Does that make any
It's
sense?
just easier said than done, a
All
little
right.
bit here. I mean, I don't want to discard it out of hand, but what we were originally talking about under number 7 for a job training center is, it's a big endeavor.
Right.
To put together essentially a job training program. That's really what we were talking about, and going through economic development or rural business development to seek grants to develop a job training program for the county. At the same time that we know that others who are expert in the area are doing the same thing. If what you're saying, however, is expanding the homelessness and low-income, affordable housing effort to include housing for, economic development, workforce.
Yeah.
Lack of a better way to say it. That's a different matter. That does fit in. If it's a housing matter, that would fit in, but not to,
Right.
building a redundant job training center effort when we have some in place.
I understand what you're saying, and yeah, my suggestion was incomplete. Instead of keeping that placeholder there as the for what was originally intending, put this in its place, including workforce development. This was my suggestion.
Are you saying?
Taking the place.
Are you saying for increasing the housing priority that we've just established for homeless and kind of low-income housing, to expand that for workforce housing? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That makes some sense, and I think the fit is better. We'll have to work through it, but I see the logic of that. If what you're saying, let's just say, for example, that Motherlode is, training, parts of our community, and needs housing for those efforts and that program. Yes, I think you could make a fit there.
So do you think we could merge those into a 7 that's sort of different?
So we take 7 out as it stands, and we fold the concept of workforce housing into the homeless and low-income housing. That fits. So I think 7 comes off the list, and the concept of the housing for the workforce, folks who are going through a program gets folded into the low-income homeless concept. We can do that.
Any objection to that, or support? Ben, does that work for you?
I do, because I do, with the job training center, I think Mia makes a very good point on the fact that there's other people out there providing it. It's going to be hard for us to accommodate money from the federal government to move forward on that. And I think that's something that we could work forward in a better manner towards workforce development and working with the people that are already dealing with that type of situation.
You see if there's a consensus on the board to take that back. Supervisor Stefano?
Yes.
Supervisor Mills?
Yeah.
Supervisor Callaway? Yes. Carmody, yes. Okay, so work on 7 and try to make it do that. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I would say we
Makes
would
sense.
essentially take out 7 as it stands and expand the homeless low-income housing to include the workforce housing. I think that's a better way to think about it.
Great.
Thank you.
So are there other, we have 8 items. Some of these we've discussed in the past, but some of them may want to be modified.
Correct.
Or dealt with 7.
Can we just start at 1 and go through the list?
Yeah.
Certainly. 1.
Yeah.
Everybody,
Is this an issue we still need to keep on?
The-
I mean, based on, we've received funding, we
have,
paid, I mean, is this an issue we want Ms. O'Connell to still be involved in?
well, I think that the issue is certainly expanded beyond Butte Fire, since now we're doing
Right.
all the tree mortalities. I guess our Director of OES has some input. What do you think? You're the professional.
Good morning, Board and Ms. O'Connell. We were very successful in receiving that grant funding, and at this point, the Good Neighbor Agreement is a little far off in our planning. So I would feel like we've done good work here, and that when we're ready to approach the Good Neighbor multi-year agreement, that we could revisit it. So maybe into the parking lot at the end would be a good place for this one. We've made great headway in this to this point.
I might argue that, we're working on all these CAL FIRE grants. A lot of them are on BLM property. They're overlapping, and even if we're not getting money from BLM, having Mia be able to go into the secretary's office or director's office and talk to him has moved a lot of obstacles for us.
It has.
Just keeps things going. So while it's maybe not specific, it's certainly an important role as far as I see.
Yeah, and as we see in recent developments, 2 of the county's shovel-ready projects come forward. That's not just serendipity. That's our efforts together, and stepping out of that to maybe or maybe not reestablish a relationship with the next party doesn't seem like it's really a good idea given where we've been. I think it's we have a good relationship. We have their ear. We're starting to get some funding. Why stop?
I would be in favor of continuing. I think we're in a good place right now. I think we need to continue it.
I agree with Gary, sorry, but number 8, close out FEMA grant and federal process, would this be good consolidating the 2 together as? Okay.
Yeah, I would let you answer that question, but
I think they're separate.
I think we're mixing apples and oranges
Yeah,
there.
I don't, yeah.
Let's finish 1 and continue on if we may.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
So, Dennis, you support keeping 1 on?
I agree with 1. It's an ongoing process. It's going to be years in the process, and as long as we can establish this pattern, hopefully it'll
And get
just
the
keep
funding,
going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
We're in a good place.
Okay, 5. We'll keep that on there. Sorry, John.
Nope, that's, I'll take all the help we can get.
2.
Number 2, looking at supporting UMRA and also spending more time looking at the funding for the Stanislaus National Forest and trying to dig in there and look at the programs that will benefit our area. And also to see, to the extent we can, maybe a lift for the Calaveras Ranger District and the good work that they're doing there. It's going to take some time. This is more of an internal effort, but we've done that before. That's what we're doing right now at BLM. This is a new area for us to dig into. Forest Service, it's a good group, it's a good agency. They seem very open to working with us. I think it might be worth our while given the amount of acreage we have on the Stanislaus and how important it is to the county. To the extent we could get some additional funding for some good management, I think it might be worth it.
I would be in support of continuing this. I'm well aware, I used to sit on UMRA, the board, so I'm well aware of the good work they do and their focus on the watershed, especially in the Moke River area, so I'm supportive.
Supervisor Stopper?
Yes.
Supervisor Mills?
Yes, with the caveat that you're familiar with the 2Care project or program over in Tuolumne County and the millions of dollars that they've received. It's very important for us to engage our RCD and possibly look at 2Care's methods that they've used there, especially the Master Stewardship Agreement's been highly successful there. We were in the process of putting one together here. I know Kathy was involved with it, Brian was involved with it. Maybe if that's something that we need to do, please let us know.
Yeah.
And we'll as a board discuss how we're going to push that forward. But yes, we've got to keep this one moving.
Supervisor Callaway? Caramendi, yes. 5-0. 3.
3. So, State Route 4 realignment, we talked about the federal opportunities, and we see one coming our way. Also, the concept of, infrastructure, highway, bridge, kind of funding opportunities. We had identified State Route 4 as kind of the poster child. I know that we have an aggressive bridge replacement program. We've gotten funding over time, but I think, there's more opportunity with the transportation authorization bill being drafted now and grant funds out there. The idea would be to look at, infrastructure, generally comparing notes with our priority list for the county to see what projects might be eligible for funding as it comes up. Also, the concept of looking at funding for safety measures for our roads. I think there's some opportunities. We see them, again, in the Senate Transportation Bill, to give ourselves a chance to look at those opportunities for our area and really try to highlight the rural funding needs that seems to be getting more and more traction, and I think we can be a good voice for that.
I'd like to change number 3 to infrastructure, not just making it State Route 4, but including, there's the Bridge Reinvestment Program that was passed. We have on our agenda later today the Capital Improvement Program, and so there could be other projects. Ms. O'Connell's already working with our Public Works Director on helping to set some of these infrastructure priorities. So, and we could even include like Cosgrove Creek in that, because that is somewhat of an infrastructure issue. And just cap it as infrastructure, and we could have line items under that that might come in and out depending on where federal funding is at the moment.
Supervisor Toffenau?
Yes, I want to caution that what Supervisor Callaway is intending to do here, because the State Route 4 realignment has been in the works for years. You talk about the general plan for 13 years, this state realignment, and if we try and clump it together instead of actively pursuing the fundings for it separately, we could be asking for some problems, because we're just about at this point right now where we have a shovel-ready project. We're ready to go. We're looking at getting easements. We have a design. We're close to going forward. Now to just lump it aside in an infrastructure thing, I think is a mistake. I think we need to focus on those funding to get this project complete and not kick it down the road a little bit, because again, it's been in the works for many years. And we're finally at that point that we're going to have a shovel-ready project here quickly, and we have some funding. COG has good-sized portion of funding committed to it, but we're still not have the total funds that we need for the total project. And again, you look at the pull station area on Highway 4, there's still a number, even though they did improvements there, there's still a number of fatal accidents going on there. And that road needs to be straightened out and widened for the safety, which lumps into this too, safety project for our constituents in the county. So I would caution that.
Supervisor Mills?
Yes, thank you, because Gary and I are both on the COG, so we understand that this is something, if we can't stay focused to this one project and the value of it, please understand, when you're looking at 140 going to Mariposa, you're looking at Highway 108 to Sonora, 88 to Jackson, all of these major cities in the foothills have a major highway getting to them that is a safe access. There is one that doesn't, Calaveras County. And so Highway 4 is critical. It is the single most dangerous road segment in the county, and it has to maintain its priority. And if we don't look at phase one, at least phase one, and getting that on the ground in 2021, 2022, all of the other stuff is not consequential. So I would stay away from Cosgrove Creek. I would keep this as a priority.
Supervisor Stopper, you have something?
Well, Cosgrove Creek is on here, is the next one, so we keep that where it's at.
So
I think I hear what Supervisor Toffanelli is saying, and I think keeping this a priority and singular until we get to a finish point, and then we could expand to something else after we're done with this.
Okay. Keep it. As is. Change it. Keep it. Okay.
Moving on to Cosgrove. In that case, the federal government switched the category for us from construction now over to maintenance. So the issue there is to, the federal engagement would be working with the federal agencies on the permitting to allow us to do a regular maintenance regime and really get that moving forward. So we're not doing it on an ad hoc basis, and we can get ahead of damages to the community and really provide the capacity in that channel by taking out the sediment and vegetation. So it's a maintenance issue here.
And I'll speak to this item. This is another item that's been on the agenda for many years. We sat on a committee, I sat on a committee that went in conjunction with the Corps of Engineers. Many times in Sacramento on discussions and meetings. The county poured a lot of money into it at the time. What came out of it was not what we were looking for, because it didn't fit the mold, as Mia said, for their categories to expend money on it. However, it doesn't make it any less of an impact here in the county. Right now, the county pays for clearing, and we don't clear the creek itself completely. We only go up to St. Andrews Bridge. What happens after that, we don't get a chance to do. So if the water, if you look at any time, even over the course of when we had the downpour last Saturday night, that creek, even though we cleared portions of it, filled very, very rapidly, very quickly, and it's because we're not being able to clear on downstream, so we have a total clearing as it goes out past the lake, and that's going to back up. So we need a complete maintenance program, and we need to make FEMA aware that this is an insurance for them that we're not asking for something that won't help them in the future by allowing a regular maintenance program on this project, in order to keep it away from, if we have another catastrophic catastrophic storm like we did in 2006 when it flooded, I'm afraid now with new development that's there and going up, we're going to have even more problems than we had in 2006.
So you raised FEMA, an interesting point. With your permission, what I could do is investigate FEMA's pre-disaster mitigation program, since we have had damages, and there is some significant funding there too for doing preventative
Preventative maintenance and more
maintenance and
insurance type.
preventative measures. Typically, it's more, flood control oriented construction, what have you. But I would need to look at the regs. There might be a place for us there under pre-disaster mitigation FEMA funding for a project here. I'd be happy to investigate that as part of this item.
I think that's viable. I think we even had that discussion when we talked on the phone. So.
Is there any objection to number 4 on the stands?
It goes in, it leaves, where Gary's talking about St. Andrews and everything, it does go down into Rancho Calaveras and the La Cantena into my district. It's not just the vegetation though. One of the biggest bottlenecks is the bridge going across Vista del Lago. And so there is some infrastructure worries there in my mind when I've seen that, when it floods, that water can't make it underneath that bridge fast enough. Also, I was working this Sunday and I was driving around and it impacts our partners with Calaveras County Water District. So there might be some other issues with the water plant at the base where Cosgrove Creek empties into Calaveras River that you can work on with them also that may be able to mitigate some of the things happening to their infiltration gallery at the water treatment plant.
Okay.
But yes, support it.
Supervisor Nelson?
Yeah.
Supervisor Callaway? Yes. Supervisor Germany, yes. Good on that one.
Okay. Moving now to 5, speaking of CCWD, the issue there is supporting CCWD in their efforts to address the upgrade. The current posture is moving forward on some construction for Copper Cove. The first piece of construction is updating that wastewater treatment and reclamation plant, the $1.1 million, and then they've got another increase in the authorization bill to allow for a higher level of authorization to do the whole plant, $13 million. So the question for the board is whether this raises to the level of a priority for the county, or whether perhaps we, have another level of support for others, rather than, us spending incredible amounts of time for funding that's not going to come to us, but supporting a sister agency in their efforts would not take as much time on my end of it. A letter or something like this. We could develop, just a separate in our platform, our priorities, and then separately support for others and identify this.
You lobby for CCWD also, do you not? So you are employed by them. I think if I recall when we placed this on there, it was to support CCWD, and we were going to go back and help them in support, not necessarily spend a lot of time or effort on our part for our lobbyists to do it, but it was, they were going back at the same time, and we were going to do some support. I don't know if the board wants to continue doing that, but there wasn't.
Put it in a different category, as we're
we could
talking
put it,
about,
yeah.
A lesser category, just support for others, rather than me spending a bunch of time on this, just the general acknowledgement that it's there and support.
And I believe, if I recall, this came out of the CCWD meetings where the chair and vice chair meet monthly, and they were going back, and we actually got back with Mia via those meetings. So I think that's where this item all came.
Yeah, I might want to include, since we're making this new category of support, which I think is a good idea.
Yeah.
We don't want to spend, we want to support them as much as we can, but we also want to remember we got to feed ourselves first.
Correct.
I would hope that under the support, we could maybe include other utilities in our county that run into, may need support someday. They don't have a current thing going on. If it does, for example, CPUD, if they have programs going on, we'd want to support as well. It's just a question of how much time and resources.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right, and the idea of making that category would be limited resources, clearly. That's what we're saying.
Supervisor Mills?
Yes, and CCWD is going to have to deal with this directly we currently have about plus 1,600 homes under current development agreements in the county in the Copperopolis Basin. So whatever's happening here is going to take them time to bring it all together. Whatever way we can support them, I certainly would do it, but I would like to see it expanded to the broader spectrum of all of the districts in the county, and how do we help them if we're going to support one, let's support them all.
Okay. Depends on the level of support. That's just
Right.
how
We may need to sort of take that as a, we have an umbrella of support, but, animal farms, some are more equal than others depending on what we've got going on.
Yeah.
Supervisor Stopper, or Supervisor Delfino, both of you look like there's something you want to add.
Well, I was just trying to get a handle on how that looks. Do they contact Mia? Do we give Mia direction that we have been approached? Yeah, so how is all that going to work, and do we give her direction on which specific district needs help, or, I mean, this is a wide open question here.
I appreciate where Mr. Toffanelli's going, because I was thinking the same thing. I think at this point, just as simple as we support these different special or entities in that, but if there is to be direction, they need to come to us and ask for our specific support, and then we can give you direction at that time.
Yeah, we can't have you out shopping for everything under the sun. Right. But if there's special requests, we could put them forward. Supervisor Mills, did you have something else?
No, that was the direction I was trying to go. Let's not make it too broad to the point where you're just running around, but
it can't work for everybody.
No, but the point is, if they have specific needs, we just already are making a clear statement here that we're willing to support. We just need to know what that support needs to be.
Right. Point of clarification, do we want to mention CCWD or just other agencies? I mean, I just want to follow whatever you want me to do.
My understanding, and listening to my colleagues, is that we drop this. There's nothing preventing us at any time from writing a letter of support to a local agency who wants our help. I mean, today we have the chair, we're giving the chair authorization to write a letter to the Public Utilities Commission. And we could do that for any agency or organization we choose. I don't think that it should be on our list of priorities for your firm.
One of the things you might want to look at, Mia, is this sort of combines 5 with the new 7, is that, when I talk to builders, they always say one of the biggest obstacles is cost of hookups. CCWD does their background, they've got their set price. We've definitely got a delta, so who knows, maybe there's ways that we can work to accomplish our goals together in getting affordable housing built. I don't know what that would look like. That'd be your mystery. So we have item 5. The question before us is, do we want, I sense a consensus on a secondary category of support. Is that correct? So the question would be, for me, do we specifically name CCWD, or do we cover it broadly? Supervisor Mills says no. Supervisor Stopper?
Broadly.
Broadly. Supervisor Tufnell?
Yeah, broadly.
Broadly.
Okay, very well. Thank you.
6.
I'd like to drop 6. This has been a topic for years and years, and there's probably every county across this nation that's asking for this. At least I know it's happening in California, and it's happening in all the rural counties. And this is really one where the pressure has to go on private industry, not at least the federal government as their position is now. And I don't think I want our firm expending energy on broadband access, even though we all want it. So does every other county. And I think through our respective organizations that we're part of, we can always come back to this as a county, but I don't think this issue is a national issue. It's not just specific to our county, and I'm not sure that I want to have Ms. O'Connell's energies put into this. There's no dent.
Ms. O'Connell and I have talked about this extensively. In fact, we met back with USDA about this specific issue, and you are correct, Supervisor Callaway. It is a private sector issue to try to provide this. However, districts like mine, where it's extraordinarily expensive to run internet to people from that final mile, we don't have dense housing tracts or modern ones. It's something that I think we need to continue to keep on a list of priorities, or we're just not going to do it at all. So it might fall under more of a support role to the agency, to the private industries that's doing it. But if we take it off, then it's really easy to forget about the people in Sheep Ranch or Railroad that don't have.
Or Dorrington, or Camp Connell, or Gans Meadow, or Sherman Acres.
So you understand completely why we ought to keep it on.
I totally understand, but I do not think this is an issue that we should be asking Ms. O'Connell to spend any time or energy on. I think this is an issue that we can deal with on our own, or through CSAC, or through RCRC, but I'd rather her spending time getting money for State Route 4 than I would have her stand in line with counties all over, with states.
So I'm going to bet that the internet's going to stick around, so I'm going to vote for it. You're going to vote against the internet.
Yeah.
Gary, do you think?
What I'm voting against is her spending her time on this issue. I mean, I want to.
That wasn't fair what I said.
No, that's true, it wasn't, and I'm trying to be above the fray.
And I apologize.
But the whole thing is a return on investment. We are investing in Ms. O'Connell's time. Where do we want her spending her time? Do you want her spending her time lobbying on an issue that is so much bigger than just Calaveras, when you can work through RCRC or CSAC or the Farm Bureau or wherever?
Let's see where the rest of the board is. Supervisor Toffenali?
Mia,
Supervisor.
your opinion
My thought
on
on
your
this
success rate on.
is, as is the case, at least before the last motion, that we were supporting others. In that case, it was CCWD. Now it's broadly, other special purpose districts within the county. This funding wouldn't come to us. This is the private sector's job. So it could be that we also add to that support for others category, which by its nature reduces my involvement with it. But it could be a letter of support. We put it under support for others. We're supporting the private sector in their endeavors in seeking federal funds. It could be a letter at the appropriate time from the board, to USDA supporting, the private sector's request for funds under a grant program. So, you could put it on there. It wouldn't be a great, time-consuming effort on my part. Certainly by putting it under support for others, it diminishes my involvement, but it would allow us to, me to check on the
It's on the
status of
radar.
the grant or do a support letter for you. It would be that way, and it would still keep it on the radar.
I would support that.
Support.
Support.
I don't. Her other is now growing exponentially.
Okay. So I will support that as well. So next one was number 8. We talked about 7 earlier.
If I understood it correctly, and Mr. Osborne, you might, is that the issue is really with the county and the state, and that we don't really need any federal involvement to close things out? Unless you're hearing something different than what I heard?
We are making a lot of headway in our work to close these projects. Winter's upon us, so it's tough to complete some of them right now. Josh's crew has been doing a lot of the work, and we are doing much better at coordinating that through my office, and we are well in hand to close out what we can. The stumbling block and where I think that Ms. O'Connell may be of service to us is we have 4 large projects that were closed out in the Butte Fire, which is data report 4240. They were sent to FEMA. FEMA has a 6 to 9 month return time, or before it even gets high enough in the stack that FEMA looks at it. And that to me seems like certainly a place for improvement for us if we didn't have that 6 to 9 months of waiting, holding out our hands. If Ms. O'Connell could spend some time with FEMA and improve that process, or somehow get us some priority, that would be helpful, because we're working very hard now to close those things out, and then they just kind of float off into federal land.
Is this true for other states and that have FEMA services? I mean, is this an issue with their process, or is this unique just to us? What about all the other entities across the country?
It is not unique to us as a county. It is a universal truth throughout the state. By that comes from our OES, our state OES folks. They collect this information from the counties, whether it be us or one of the other 57 counties. They review whatever information, and then it's sent to FEMA. Once it's sent to FEMA, 6 to 9 months, it is a pretty atrocious turnaround time when we're talking about small rural counties that are positioned now the way that we are or were, because FEMA just gets around to it when they get around to it.
Supervisor Mills?
Oh, sorry.
Well, I'm getting the feeling that this year might be the real critical year to have Mia focus on this, because if we're going to close these things out, we might need a little bit of help to get us over the goal line. This has a large fiscal impact on our county. We don't know exactly what those obstacles are going to be, but I'm pretty sure there'll be something. And having someone back there to help us get this over the goal line.
I would wholeheartedly agree. I'm not sure I speak for Josh. Josh, I know that on our side, we're inside the 20. We're in the red zone to complete our projects, get these closed out, and get them to FEMA. And it seems like we're going to put an awful lot of work into that, and then we're going to wait an indeterminate amount of months or years before we get that work recognized by FEMA.
Okay, so you're going to be the fullback. Supervisor Stopper or Supervisor Toffenot?
Yeah, and I think initially that was a discussion we had when this was placed on there, the fact that small rural counties such as us have to foot that bill to get the projects completed, and then wait and wait and wait to get money back that we've expended out of general fund. And the idea was to go back to their lobby, at least on our part, and hopefully get them to change their minds when they look at this system for small rural counties, because it is a big, heavy load on us. And if something happens again tomorrow, we still have another heavy, big load, and we're still waiting for payment on monies that we've expended years ago. So I think that was initial, so I support it.
I support it. Anything you can do to expedite the process for us is appreciated.
Very well. Supervisor Mills, you on board? Supervisor Callaway? Yes. Karamindy? Aye. Mia, do you have other questions for us? I know you've got to get on an airplane. We could have, we may have public comment. You may have to watch it on video when you get on the plane. But I also don't want to hold you up, so I want to make sure we answer all your questions.
I think through this discussion, I've gotten the direction that I need. If I have questions, I'll get back to Mr. Alt just for any clarification, but what I'll do is I'll go back and make the revisions as per your direction, and thank you for engaging so deeply in this. It's very, very helpful to me. Really crystallize the thinking about where we should be spending our resources, so very helpful. I'll put together a draft that I will send to Mr. Alt, and we'll coordinate to see that it makes sure it reflects your needs and direction to me, and we'll go from there.
I want to thank you for making the flight out here and continuing it.
Pleasure.
You've been a pleasure to work with as chairman this year, and I'm sure the next chair will also enjoy working with you. Supervisor Toffenelli?
I just want to say thank you, Mia.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
We're going to take a 1-minute break while Mia wraps up her stuff, and then we're going to do public comment on this item. Unless you want to wrap and go at the same time. We'll take a 1-minute break.
Okay.
We'll never get this right. Welcome back. We are moving on to the consent agenda. How's that? So, I apologize. We have public comment on our federal presentation we just had and our lobbying objectives for this year. Tim?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Supervisor, staff. Tim Udertes, District 3. I am a member currently serving on the Council of Governments. We do this each and every year, sit down with our prioritization list. I would encourage you to keep your list to 2 or 3, because otherwise your advocate will be overrun. I'd also be curious to know if there are any discussions that went on about the current climate in DC and which one of your priorities may have the best chance of success. So, for whatever that's worth. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it? Ms. Worcester?
Anthony Worcester, McCollum Hill. I wasn't here for most of the presentation you folks heard, but I do have some very strong ideas about the problems of water in this county. And I have spoken with both Supervisor Toffenelli and your chair, Jack Garamendi, on these issues and asked them to please come to public hearings, which they did when CPUD did theirs. And, I'm really concerned that in Calaveras County, we have a lot of people who don't have enough money to pay for their property tax, their water, their electricity, and now maybe a generator because the electricity is not that stable anymore, on and on and on. And if you look at what's happening, the cost of living is going up all the time. Social Security does not keep up with the cost of living. Not everyone has Social Security. We have people here. I went door to door in Paloma to gather signatures against the increase for CPUD. And what I heard from the people I talked to was they would not be able to water their trees. They don't have enough money coming in on a month. These are people in their 70s and 80s, and maybe some older. Out of everyone that Sheila Russo and I interviewed and had signed up that they opposed, there only one person, only one, wouldn't sign. And he said, well, he was so grateful because he'd been there for like 50 years. And he was so wonderful when CPUD actually did bring water to them that he couldn't go against it. That's one person. Everyone else was against this increase because they couldn't afford it. So I feel that although these are all separate little water districts, like CCWD, CPUD, we have several others, I hope that the county can do something to help them. I think some of the managers may need more training, education. They don't seem to know how to keep the cost down and how to get money from the feds or the state. So when I first saw this on the agenda the other day, I thought, well, that's good. I'm glad CCWD is at least coming forward and saying, hey, we need help. You know, can you help us? So I'm not either against or for what you folks have just witnessed and thought about.
Thank you very much.
Just sharing my thoughts and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gonzalez?
You can call me Gina, it's okay.
Gina, welcome.
I have a thank you to give to all you guys. This lady's wonderful. She's on our side. I really was enthusiastic about hearing about the Highway 4 corridor. In the last 7 days, there has been 6 accidents, and they were all dangerous, right by my house, right there at Highway 4 and Pool Station. I am on call with the fire department, and I respond to these these accidents. And to see that this is moving forward, like Gary said, it's moving forward. It's a priority, and it's really important for everybody to know that this is not only road in our county that's a problem. There's many, many problems, but to see this is really enthusiastic. And as a neighborhood watch captain for Bar 20, I will be presenting this back to the neighbors because we are all concerned about it. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Other public comment on this? Ms. Gordo?
I think that the trees being removed in a timely way when they're hazardous is really a good idea. And I was wondering if maybe one way of getting funding would be to turn it around and say, okay, we have this program that we're going to plant trees. And in order to make it, the whole proposition viable, we need to have these trees removed that are in the way of planting the new trees. Anyway, it was just a thought. And the other thing is, on the homeless situation, I had a bad day yesterday, and I ended up in Burger King, and I was reading the paper, and this guy wanted to talk to me, and he was like behind me, and I'm friendly, so I started talking to him, and he's homeless for 2 years, and so he had a roundabout way of cluing me in on his homelessness, and his daughter wanting him to get help because she needs help. She's a teenager, and so his brother is making it possible for him to go up north to see his 90-year-old mother and other people. And his sisters and brothers and nieces and nephews. And then he's going to go to a Christian camp. The only trouble is that he cannot have his couple of beers a day. And that's a big holdup for him. And I hope you can read between the lines, because in the meantime, some other guy came in. He had an earring and looked really cool. And his daughter was going to court and probably will end up in juvie. That's his terminology. And he was also talking about his mini cars and stuff like that. So as the conversation wound down, he says, "Do you want to smoke?" And so they both went outside.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cora. Next speaker.
I think it's wonderful that we have a government that can give us money when we have disasters. The storms from February did so much damage in our district. Independence Road was one of them. So we're receiving FEMA money to fix the roads and to fix all the damages caused, and we depend on this. We depend on this as a county because sometimes when God strikes, we need a little bit of help. Jack, You said a little bit earlier that you don't want to poke anyone in the eye when you have your hand out for money. We have our hand out, we're asking for FEMA money. So why are you going against our federal government by allowing marijuana back in our county? You got your hand out, but you're poking them in the eye. And I'm pretty sure McGregor Scott would agree with me on this concept. Thank you.
Next speaker. Seeing none, that was an informational item, so we will move on to consent.
Okay. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion.
Very well. Board members, anybody have an item on pull? Supervisor Mills?
Item 9, item 20, and 25.
Other items from the board? Staff? Mr. Banner?
Yes, I'd request that number 20 be taken off the agenda for to be brought back at a future date.
Very well. I think we need a motion to do that. Is that correct? Sorry. 25. He did pull number 20. So we would have we need a motion to remove it from the agenda to a time certain, or just remove it?
Just remove it.
Just pull the item. Yeah.
To discuss?
No, I believe that Mr. Banner is asking to remove the item from the agenda in its entirety because of no longer a need for action of the board. Is that correct?
Yes. Very well.
Oh, because it's a resolution. So
It is a
I
resolution.
would move, if you need that, I'll move to remove it.
Thank you, Supervisor. A second?
Second.
No.
Could we please approve what's remaining on the consent
Oh,
agenda?
first.
And
First.
then go through them. That
Got
would
it.
be most helpful for me.
Most certainly, Madam
Thank
Clerk.
you.
Supervisor Mills, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll move the remainder. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Wow.
I'll second.
Supervisor Toffenali, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Okay, let's go in order. Just trying to make you happy.
Okay, item 9 is from County Council to authorize the board chair to execute amendment number 1 to an agreement with Colatuano, Highsmith, Watley, PC for ongoing representation in Superior Court Case Number 18CV43460 to increase the not-to-exceed amount by $120,000 for a total not-to-exceed amount of $170,000.
Supervisor Mills, you had a question on this item?
Multiple questions here. I noticed in the financing, this would be on packet page 814. We're talking about that's already in the specialized services portion of the budget for this year. However, I did note that it said something about coming back in mid-year for a budget adjustment, so I'm not certain. That seems to be a disconnect to me. Let me just take that question first. Is there going to be a need for a budget adjustment at mid-year?
For this line item, I'm not sure where you're seeing, could you point out where it says that we would need to come back at mid-year in this item? I don't believe it's in this item.
It's not in this item?
I don't believe so. That's why, if you can point me in that direction, I can certainly review what your concern is and be able to answer it.
I'm sorry. I remembered seeing something about a need for a potential budget adjustment at mid-year.
I think that's a different item.
Okay.
For this item, there is sufficient funding within the budget that's already been appropriated for outside contracts.
So the court has now decreed that there be there's sanctions against these individuals of $2,370 per.
Correct.
Is there going to be a difficulty in collecting that, or is that something the court's going to do, or how's that handled?
We'll certainly be working through collections of that. I can certainly provide the board a memo on the process for collecting that. And then work with Colantuno's office as well as far as the process to actually collect on those judgments, but it would be a collections effort outside of the actual defense of this case.
Okay, so it is separate. Okay. Is there in any way that what is happening with this case could potentially affect future Measure C income? So as we go into the regulatory process and there is future Measure C money collected, will this in any way have a bearing?
Unless and until the court says that the county cannot collect a tax, we would be collecting a tax on anything that is taxable.
And then it would be up to the court to decide what's going to happen from there.
Correct.
So what kind of a timeline are we on right now? I mean, I saw a little bit of a timeline here, but this hasn't been set for a trial.
It is not. It has not been set for trial. Are you asking when it's
Yeah, it's kind of an estimate
anticipated?
of what we think a timeline might be for us to get this through the court and get it resolved.
We're probably still this time next year, maybe, or this time 2020, maybe? I'm guesstimating at this point. I mean, certainly there's a lot of moving parts with cases through law and motion, other motions that may be filed between now and actually getting to a trial.
So this could run 1 to 2 years.
We're still a ways out.
Okay. Well, that's the reason for the pulling of the item. I'm sure that council will bring this to a closed session if we have more need for depth on the discussion. Thank you, Chair.
Supervisor Stop.
I think approval of this will keep an institutional element to this case. Right now, we soon have our lead county council leaving. I think it's crucial that we keep the Colantuno, Highsmith, Watley working on this issue. There is over $13 million in collected taxes. The unregistered, the registration fees have already been resolved due to the 4/5 vote earlier this year. A 4/5 vote by the supermajority of the supervisors that understood the implications of the permit fees along with the law on Proposition 26. That they were originally asking for some of the registration fees back with this. I think we've resolved that part of the issue. I support this down, moving forward.
I can make the motion to.
Let me do some public comment first.
Yeah.
Is there public comment on this item, item 9?
Good morning, Vicki Reinke. I was also going to pull this item. So I think it's important that the community understand what this is all about. And as we go through the agenda for the rest of today, this should make an impact on some of those decisions. And I'm just going to read one thing on the agenda document that's here. It says on August 3rd, 2018, Adam Ray, Golden State Herb Incorporated, and Andrew Grew filed a class action complaint in demand for the jury trial. The complaint asserted that the commercial medical marijuana program implemented by the county in 2016 was illegal and that the county had no legal authority to assess a tax on commercial cannabis activities. I know that that's the question in the courts, but the people have to understand that. These whole taxes are under a lawsuit. And we want to pass another ordinance and fund another ordinance. While this is pending, you think you're not going to see other lawsuits for maybe the permit fees too high this time. So anyway, I just want the public to understand that that's what this lawsuit is about, and it is public knowledge. You can look it up on through the court system. Thank you.
Next speaker.
As we've gone through this drama for many years, the most frequently asked question, and the one that never gets an answer, is how much is pot costing this county? We never seem to be able to come up with an expense, a total expense. It's over here, it's over there, it's hidden, no one knows. The auditor or the controller didn't do it right. It's not being recorded correctly. It's this. We don't know, and we've been asking for it time and time again. Now, when you have to start spending taxpayer money for attorneys to protect you against a lawsuit by pot growers, wouldn't that be a marijuana-related expense? Without the marijuana, without the growers, this lawsuit wouldn't exist. This wouldn't have happened. So it becomes an extra expense for the county. Are you figuring that in as you look forward to more of these harebrained schemes that you're going to regulate and all this other kind of stuff? Whether you do it or not, I mean, I don't know, but it's costing you a lot of money. And it doesn't seem like the cost is going down. And also, I mean, I don't know the case, but for spending this much money on additional attorneys, I think we have more people in county counsel's office than we do in almost any other office. Obviously, they can't do this. Where is the money going to come from? And what happens if you lose? You know, just spending money on attorneys doesn't mean you're going to win or prevail. It could come down pretty hard on this county. What are you going to do then? You're going to double down and have another program right behind it, hoping to raise money to pay off the lawsuit? You know, if you ask most professional gamblers, doubling down every time you lose is a pretty good way just to go broke. So I hope that in the future when we ask how much money is being spent on the marijuana program, how much has it cost the county, that things like this get added into it, that you direct the auditor and controller to somehow flag these expenses so at the push of a button, we know every single expense that was marijuana related, and we don't have to go chasing that number around. So it's just a request that I have, and it'll make it a lot easier for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gordo?
The story I was telling about the two guys that went out to smoke something, well, the homeless guy was getting shook down for something. The other guy was a drug pusher. And right there in Burger King, and I'm going, what do people do to help people that are in these kind of situations? And
Ms. Gordo, this is specific.
I know it's specific to this, but this is what, as a watershed problem from pot, and that's what's being discussed.
No, ma'am, we're discussing a tax lawsuit about whether we've appropriately or inappropriately assessed and collected taxes.
On pot.
That's correct.
And that's what I'm talking
So if we could focus
about.
on that, we can talk about it.
Well, apparently, we don't have enough law enforcement to keep people from having drugs pushed on them right in Burger King. And so anyway, that's my opinion.
Thank you. Next speaker.
At the town hall meeting in West Point, Jack, you said that the UO made $13.2 million. Why aren't we using that $13.2 million to pay off the marijuana lawsuits? Why are you coming back to the taxpayers? We're already having troubles between our homeowners insurance and the taxes being raised. Why are you using that instead of the $13.2 million that the county made?
Next speaker. Seeing none, I'll bring it back for a motion or further discussion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Callaway. Motion by Supervisor Stopper, second by Supervisor Callaway. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right.
Item 20 is from Animal Services to adopt a resolution authorizing the fostering and adoption of horses seized on August 27th, 2019, and establish adoption fees for the horses.
Sir, this item has been requested to be removed from the agenda. I need a motion to do so.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Supervisor Stopper, second by Supervisor Callaway. Is there public comment on this item?
I just have a question. I'd like to know how much this cost us. Are you guys prosecuting the owners? Why Calaveras Animal Disaster Services wasn't involved in this hauling these horses for nothing? It cost the county $0 to use us. Why we are being ignored by Animal Services. And I adopted horses 3 years ago from the county, and not one animal control officer has ever seen or been to my ranch to see what kind of conditions my horses are in. So I would appreciate it if the Animal Services Office would come by and follow up after they adopt these animals out. That's my request. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further public comment on this item? Seeing none, I have a motion and a second. I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries 5-0.
And item 25 is from Human Resources to approve a resolution establishing a new job description for County Council.
Supervisor Mills, you had a question on this item?
Yes, on page 38, packet page 388, page 4, this is under the training experience certifications. It says possession of a Juris Doctorate degree from an accredited school of law. Are all schools of law recognized by the American Bar Association?
Is that a question for council?
So there are multiple, law schools, there are California accredited schools, there are ABA accredited schools, there are schools that don't have accreditation, correct?
Yeah, my concern is...
There are different types of accreditation.
Yeah, I didn't ask the question, and I didn't know the answer to it. So the question, the concern that I have is the accredited school of law. I would like to see that to be a recognized ABA school of law rather than just a accredited school of law. That gives us a little bit better result.
Are there two other votes that want to make that change to this item? Supervisor Stopper?
No.
Supervisor Toffenelli?
Yes.
Supervisor Callaway?
What do we have to gain by making the change?
At the end of the day, anyone who goes to any law school still has to pass the same bar. So truly, the accreditation that the board should be looking at is state bar accredited. That should be a requirement for the position. Obviously, anybody practicing law has to be state bar accredited, California state bar accredited. But it's certainly within the board's discretion if you would like to have. For instance, there are many law schools within California that are California bar accredited, but they are not American bar accredited for a whole host of reasons, whether it's that it's an only night school program or their law library isn't large enough or it's not open during certain hours. There are a lot of reasons that a school would be California bar accredited but not ABA accredited. That's up to the board.
Yes, thank you. I don't want to make a change.
I also don't want to make a change. So there's been no change. Other questions, Supervisor Mills?
Not at this time.
Very well. Public comment on this item? Seeing none, is there a motion or further discussion? 25?
So move.
Moved by Supervisor Callaway. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Stopper. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Carries
No.
5.
No.
Sorry?
Without the APA, my vote is no.
4 yes, 1 no. Supervisor Mills is the no. We will continue the regular agenda at 1:30. We will be picking up on item 28 at that time. Thank you.